People, deluded, I'm back again. Now, I don't want to be I'm not trying to sound negative or anything, because again, we don't know, but I've really been pondering Arteta's thoughts, Arteta's comments about we're planning on 2 or 3 different scenarios in relation to the summer window. Obviously, it filled me with promise, because fundamentally, for me, prior to this, I wanted the team, when I say team, I mean Edu in that, and in tandem with Arteta, obviously identify the areas we need to improve and what targets, because most teams, what I don't know about now because it's been flipped on its head, but 9 times out of 10, these summer signings, they're done time ago. You look at when Xhaka signed for us, he said the first contact was in January. So whether you agree with the Xhaka thing or not, or Renato Sanchez, when he moved to Munich, that was done when Champions League was been playing in the middle of the first half of the season. So most targets are known. Within reason, obviously there's different manoeuvres and time periods. So I would like to hope we've got the bulk of what we want to do better. We've got it on lock, and we're obviously trying to, we don't know how it's going to be, but react to different scenarios, because we don't know what the summer market's going to be. On one hand, you could still see big money transfers. On the other, with the knock-on effect of Corona, you could see less. You could see more swap deals. You could see, teams might say, do you know what, we're going to do this coaching thing now. We're going to look more at our academy, and that could be a very big benefit for Premier League clubs long term. We're going to look at our academy, or there's certain players like, to make the example, Sissoko was once a cast off, and Lemina was of Spurs, and Xhaka and Mustafi, people more so Mustafi was seen as a cast off, and it's not to the level of the Spurs lads I've mentioned, but all the players I've mentioned at their clubs, the manager has found another use for them, in which fans would have threw them in the bin, definitely for Mustafi, and I'm sure Spurs would say for Sissoko, sort of thing. Is that what clubs are going to do? We're going to look at players, we're going to say cast off, and we're going to work with what we have? Or is it going to be reduced fees? Are fees going to go back to normal when 50 million was 50 million could have got you Alexis Sanchez one time. What, didn't we sign him for 40 odd? Do you get it? Remember when 40, 50 was the big boy sort of things, and even 30 was seen as a big thing? Remember when Berbatov went United from Spurs for 30, or Shevchenko was seen as a big one? Nowadays, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but 50 million for Sigurdsson, for example, that don't make sense to me. And that's just the one in my head, so I'm not trying to scapegoat him, people, by any stretch of the imagination, sort of thing. So it's lovely we don't know how we're going to react, we don't know what the market is, but it's lovely to hear we're proactive. But to a degree, as fans, in any of these eventualities, do we have to be prepared to rein in our expectations a bit? Because an ideal summer, of course, for me would be a centre-half, a central midfielder, sorting out what we're doing with Aubameyang, if not, reacting to that. And if there is money left over, if we could get, whether it's scouts doing their job or spending a bit there, if we could get an inside forward, for me, that is better than what we have. I think that'd give us another level, and potentially sorting out the futures of whether Mkhitaryan and Ozil, are they running down their deals, are they keeping it moving? Lacazette, Kolasinac, Bellerin have 2 years left on their deals. Decisions being made over at least 2 of the 3 of them. You'd be inclined to believe Lacazette and Kolasinac would probably be moved on. I love Lacazette, but there's a case to sign someone else to do what he's doing. Obviously, in Kolasinac's case, we'd have to renegotiate. The birds are mad. We'd have to renegotiate a new deal. Would it make sense when you've got 2 left backs on the books? There's in Saka and Tierney. Now, again, if Saka is going to move back to left back, then there needs to be a conversation had over Kolasinac. But for me, I see a lot of, the contract is a big thing, because I can't see us, again, I don't know, but I can't see us giving Aubameyang a new deal, at least until Mkhitaryan and Ozil move on. I hope that's not the case. I say that because our wage balance is already imbalanced, and you're going to throw more money at it. Aubameyang deserves it, but as a fan, or not even a fan, just looking at the accounts, you're seeing it rise, and it's not healthy for a business. Do we have to be prepared to rein it in the sense that players that we need to move on, not just the ones I've mentioned, players that even form as, let's be real, people. Mustafi, if he signs a new deal and does it, it's his thing. But he hasn't been the centre-half we thought. He's been quality this season since Arteta's come in. But this is probably no better time to sell him, sort of thing, because he's going to have a year left. If you let him walk for free, cool, it might be a benefit. Because if we have no money to address a centre-half, you have to keep the depth, I guess. But do we have to be prepared to accept that, El Nene, Mkhitaryan, these sort of players and contracts and bringing in players, it's going to be a bit underwhelming, because do we need to accept the climate is what I'm asking people. What are we going to do? Are we going to do more swap deals? Are we going to attempt swap deals? Are we going to sell players for even more reduced fees? Because I don't think we could command the maddest of fees for half of these players, but do we have to resell for reduced fees? You know, because you got to look at buyers, people. For us, it's the same logic. Selling is one thing, buying is the other. With the financial stuff, you look at Mkhitaryan, for example. There was talk of signing a new deal to go to Roma. To again, do you remember seeing it? I spoke on it. Sign a new deal at Arsenal, get more money from Roma, sort of thing. With Roma, considering his form's been good and he's adapted to life and the manager likes him, but with the coronavirus, they might say, oh, boom, we need to buy other areas. Or, you know what, we've hardly got money. The outlay on Mkhitaryan, we're probably going to have to give him a fairly decent wage because of his age and who his advisors are. It probably wouldn't have been it would have been cost effective, but would it have been the best deal? But should we walk away from this? Can't imagine Besiktas want to keep on any permanently, people, but, you know, they might react to it. Do you get it? So do we have to kind of rein in our expectations? And I'm pretty sure regardless of the coronavirus, let's be honest, people, we all knew not every player that you can make a case of departing this club or saying we couldn't move forward with is going to go. You're not going to... Listen, we know as Arsenal fans, you're not going to see 7 or 8 man go, 7 or 8 man come in or things like that. Regardless, people, and that's not necessarily healthy, too many wholesale changes. But do we have to be prepared to accept that, especially when you're hearing with the wages? You obviously know Arsenal and not making the Champions League's an issue. Obviously, there's the TV rights business and the trickle-down effect. Obviously, you look at Arsenal's match day revenue, that percentage in the top 6, people, we rely on that the most. So are these things indirectly going to impact our transfer market? And in turn, we have to reduce our expectations. I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it isn't. I'm not trying to talk on things I can't comprehend because I barely passed maths at GCSE, and you know I'm not a finance man. I want to talk about tactics and all of these things, but it plays on my mind, people. It does play on my mind, and hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully, regardless, we can still do our job. And again, I will say, you know, even if it gets to the market where 30 million is all that man can really spend, it's easy for me to sit here and say this, but I always say this. Scouts, do your job. Scouting, if this is the case, would arguably be the most important. You know, again, it's not as easy, but, you know, you found a Martinelli. At a point, where did we get Hileb from? Well, obviously, you know where we got Hileb from, but at a time where someone's got to found Hileb in Belarus, someone's got to found Lewandowski, some scout, like with Kahegio's, got to see that at the time Aubameyang wasn't that world-class striker, wasn't that guy, but he had the foresight to see, yo, listen, he can be a serious guy, let's move for him now. Do you see what I'm saying, people? We've got to try and do these things, try and find the players of tomorrow, try and find players that people didn't think could adapt to this level and do their thing. Like, you look at Wijnaldum. Wijnaldum was sick at Newcastle and was sick in Holland, but he was a bit more of a decision maker. He played a bit more going forward. Liverpool bought him. They've kind of reinvented his role. Now they're laughing really and truly because he's helping them in their own way. So we'll have to see, people, and really, we don't know how it's going to react, because first and foremost, football needs to get back to going before we talk about man moving, clubs, contracts being signed and all of these things. We don't know how it's going to react because really we don't know as a society where we are with the coronavirus, as a global society anyways, really, people. On that note, though, I've got nothing more to add or say, so I'm not going to do you a lot of displeasure of staying here and talking longer than I need to. It's already been a mouthpiece, but on that note, people, it's always going to be a pleasure. Deluded, I'm out. Comment, subscribe, and do the rest if you wish.